What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on the channel today. Hopefully you guys are doing well. And today, boys, I'm going to show you guys my custom tactics that I've been using on my account, the Kyren Road to Glory, in order to go ahead and get ourselves some rank 1 finishes. Now, this has been a very heavily requested video from the peeps in my stream, and the reason why I have been putting it off until now is because I haven't been 100% about what my custom tactics should be and what I need to do in order to change them in order to go ahead and turn my losing scenarios into winning scenarios. So I think I'm at the point now where I'm pretty comfortable with where I'm at. I know what I need to change in order to like adapt it to different scenarios, and then also on top of that, we've come off the back of 2 rank 1 finishes in FUT Champs Finals. I think we had a 17-1 over the past 2 weekends ago, and then last weekend we just hit ourselves a 16-3. So I'm very comfortable with where my custom tactics are, and hopefully I can give you guys a little bit of insight into what I've been using in order to go ahead and finish well in the FUT Champs Finals. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video for today. Hopefully you find it informational. If you do, don't forget to hit a big old thumbs up. If you are new around here, don't forget to subscribe. And yeah, let's get straight into the video. So you guys might be wondering, Kyren, what's going on with your team just overall? And if you guys have been tuning into the streams, what I've been doing every weekend is I've been building a team to try out a few different players. And then after the weekend, I've been selling it so I don't lose too many coins when it all just kind of comes down with the supply. And you guys would have seen it this week with the 50k preview packs. Boys, we had an absolutely crazy market crash. I had like a lot of players that definitely went down in price, but luckily for me, I've been doing pretty well in selling them before the content and avoiding massive coin drops. But I sold my Suarez at like 943. We sold Trent for like 198, and Usman we sold for 726, and he's been in the 500 600s. I think Trent's been down in like 120 to 150, and I've seen Suarez in the 600s as well. So we did really well to avoid losing a large amount of coins and just having a bit of fun trying out some new players. But that's kind of been the idea for me this year, is I haven't been really staying with one team. I've kind of just been playing with a few different players and having fun trying out some different cards, because I think that's kind of what's been fun for me. I don't really enjoy too much running with the same team I've been running with every year, and it's been a fun thing overall. But I'm going to change you guys over to what I've been running right now. We're kind of pretty liquid right now. I think the only card I've got still that is worth a decent chunk of value is the Wants to Watch Hakimi, and I think I'm just going to keep this card for the rest of the year. I think that's kind of the deal. But this kind of been the team that I've been running for the midweek, just a bit of squad battles if I need to play it, and this is going to be the team I'm going to show you guys my custom tactics on. So let's get straight into it. Let's go into the custom tactics, and I'll show you guys what I've been running in the FUT Champs Finals. And the interesting thing for me this year is that I actually only really play one set of custom tactics, which is my 4-4-2. It's my base formation, and whatever I need to change within the game, I kind of change just manually just by controlling the stuff. But I think in previous years, especially FIFA 21, you kind of had to counter people's formations with a specific formation. I think the big one would have been the 4-3-1-2. You kind of have to counter it with the 4-3-1-2, otherwise you're extremely exposed. However, I don't think that's really the case this year. I think you can play the style that you want to play, and as long as you're somewhat composed and you can kind of work it very well, you can play very, very nicely, you should be able to get a decent result out of it. And that's been my experience so far, at least over the past month and a half. Maybe an overpowered formation a bit later in the year will come through, but we'll give you guys an updated custom tactics video if that happens at that point. But for the meantime, I'm very, very happy with just playing my base 4-4-2, just kind of leaving it at that, and it's been kind of working pretty well. Now, you guys will notice in my custom tactics, I play a very neutral style of FIFA when it comes to just how it sets all out. The only thing that I think is a bit more different comparatively to previous years is that my depth is now pushed up to 70, and the reason for that being is on PlayStation 5, the defense tends to set very, very deep, and I don't particularly like that. I like to win the ball higher up the pitch. I like to push my team a bit higher up, and I'll like to defend manually if I get hit on behind in the counter. So I like to have 70 depth. If you're playing on current gen, see if it's too high for you, high of a defensive line. But for me personally, I quite like 70 depth. And also, if you're a bit too open, if you find it too open, maybe lower the depth down. If I'm trying to hold on to a lead, I might drop this down to like 50. But for me, I think 70 depth is a good balance in the sense that I can try win the ball high up the pitch, and I can make sure that I'm going ahead and progressing and playing a proactive version of FIFA. So that's kind of the way I set it up, just overall defensively. Now on the attack, I play balance to start off with. 50 width, once again, very neutral tactics, and I have 5 players in the box, so nothing too crazy. The main thing I will take away from this is the corners and the free kicks. I personally wouldn't go above 2. If you go very high up on this number, usually what ends up happening is you get hit a lot of times on the counter, because your center backs are usually in the box, and the players who are drop back are usually the weaker defensive players. You can get caught out a lot of times here, so I wouldn't go about 2. I think even if you wanted to go 1, I can completely understand that, because the counters of corners and free kicks this here are absolutely crazy just in transition. It's a big deal, so if you want to do that, I can understand that. And I think the main thing with this year's FIFA is, if you can make sure that you stop the counter, you should be able to defend pretty well. It's mainly just about being hit in transition. If you get hit in transition, then you're a bit yikes, but as long as you have your defense set, you should be pretty alright. Now, if I'm in a losing scenario, this is what I normally change. The first thing I do is I normally go fast build up. The reason for that being is because I want my players to move a bit higher up the pitch. This will normally be in a game where I'm like 0-0 or 1-0 down, and I'm not really making any chances. It kind of makes the team all kind of move out. Now obviously if you lose the ball, you're a bit more susceptible to a counter, but you gotta give something in order to try and win the game. That's the way I personally feel about it. So I really like fast build up. I think it's a good way to go about it. I don't like long ball. The reason why is there's just too much of a gap between the defense and the attack. So for me personally, I think fast build-up is a great way to go about it. And then also on top of the other thing I'll do is I'll normally go press on heavy touch. I actually quite liked press on possession loss at the end of last year, but I feel like the way the constant pressure is this year, if you have someone who is very good at holding the ball, and I feel like the opponents I've been playing more recently have been getting a lot better at dodging the constant pressure sort of pressure. What ends up happening is your players overcommit, and when you need one player to like kind of sit and hold that marking space, they'll also commit, and then you're just in a rough situation where you're just gonna get hit on the counter. I actually had a game in the past weekend league where I was on press on every touch. We were 100% in the game. I switched to constant pressure and ended up losing that game by 3 goals. So be very careful when you're using constant pressure. Also with the same with press on possession loss. The only situation where I'd kind of use constant pressure in is if you have an opponent who's passing around the back a lot, holding the ball, not really showing any attacking threat. I think that's a situation in which you may want to use constant pressure. But for me, I think personally press on heavy touch means that you're going to press in situations where your players are more likely to win the ball. But in a normal situation, they kind of still hold their shape and you're not getting too bent out of position if someone's a very good possessive player. So that's what I normally do when I'm down in a game. If I really need to up the depth, I'll also check up the players in the box, but that's kind of a rundown of whatever happens. And then obviously if I'm holding on to a game, I think the only thing that I'm doing is I'm really dropping my depth down to something like 40 or 50 just to have a few more players a bit more deep set. For me personally, I don't think you need to do more than that, especially on next gen. With the hypermotion technology, it just sits your team very well defensively. I don't like drop back just because I think it invites too much pressure on, but that's the way I personally go for it. Now if you're on current gen, maybe you want to set that depth a bit deeper. I think on next gen with the hypermotion technology, it's already so defensively set. You don't need anything else to really assist you defensively. I think I hold on to games pretty well just like that. It allows me to still be proactive on the attack and hopefully extend that lead to maybe 2 or 3. Now moving forward, let's go have a look and talk about the formation. First of all, the reason why I play the 4-4-2 is because I just think it's the most balanced formation just generally. Last year we had the issue with this formation where you could get countered straight through the middle very narrowly, and that was the big weakness with the 4-4-2. However, this year I don't think it's an issue, and the reason why that is once again with the hypermotion technology, your team defends as a unit, and that gap that was open straight through the middle just really isn't there anymore. The only really situation where I feel like I get hit on the counter is once again if I'm on constant pressure. I usually have a few too many players committing, or if I manually commit a player myself, it usually allows for the pass to be open. So this formation now isn't as poor defensively defensively as it was in previous years, but it's still got the whole benefits of what it is good at when it comes to attack, which is the triangles between the CDM, or the center mids in this case, the wide players and the wing backs, as well as also the two strikers up the top for the little ping passes between the two of them. You've got center mids that are available in the attack, and then of course you've got your wide players which provide width. So if you have a player that is very, very narrow, you can switch that ball, and you've then got another attacking option. And when I compare it to some other formations, firstly for me, I played 4-2-3-1 previously. I found it once again to be extremely defensive. I think in current gen, I think you'd be perfectly fine with it, but in next gen, you have to be extremely patient in order to go ahead and actually create any sort of attacking opportunity. And if you're one of those players who is exceptionally good technically, and you've got the Neymars and the Janolas, you like all your meta sort of situations, 4-2-3-1 probably will work out very well for you, because you will probably concede extremely little amounts of goals. But for me, I can't really attack all that well in it. I don't play that patient, I personally feel, which is probably something I should probably get better at. So 4-4-2 works a lot better for me. Now, the other two formations I think get brought up a lot, and maybe something that you might find if you find this formation a bit too open, is maybe something like the 4-4-2-2 or the 4-2-2-2. The only issue with those formations is you are like, those formations are screaming for a cam player. The gap between the midfield and the defense and the attack is just too big. But if you're one of those players that plays on the counter, that plays that long ball sort of type, then yeah, that's something that you could definitely do. But for me personally, I think 4-4-2 gives you that nice little balance. You have a good distribution between your defense, mid, and attack, and there's a good amount of distance between all of them. And the other formation that I used to use, which was the 3-5-2, is actually a formation I haven't tried this year, and I need to try it at some point, because I think a lot of people obviously like the 3-5-2. The reason why I've been staying away from it though is because I actually haven't had at any point 3 center backs in my team, and I'm a bit cautious about this year with the whole nerf for wing backs at center back with the defensive awareness. Usually it'd be a formation where I have that as an option to go to, and I normally play a 3-5-2, but I'll have to try it out in a bit. But I'm a bit cautious with that defensive awareness, so we'll have to see how that all goes. But that's the reason why I play the 4-4-2. Now let's talk a bit about the personnel, and I think the main important thing I want to talk about is the center mids. I think that's the important thing. In this situation, you want players that can attack. For me, I tried using Kante in this 4-4-2 situation, and Kante is a beautiful CDM player in a 4-1-2-1-2 and a 4-2-3-1, but in the 4-4-2, he's just not the player you want, because he hasn't got the passing stats, he's got alright dribbling, and the shooting stats aren't there as well. So in the attack, he's just not going to be there for you. And in this formation, your center mids get very high up the pitch. They can sometimes be that overlapping run that gives that extra goal, or they can be that support to some of your strikers. So for me personally, box to boxes, attacking minded midfielders, they're perfect for the 4-4-2. I think my options, my two guys I have, are pretty attacking. I probably would replace someone, ideally, if you find it a bit weak defensively, like De Jong, with someone like maybe a Llorente or an who would be another guy, a Fofana SBC, Wijnaldum maybe, something along those lines. I think that would be pretty good. But yeah, I think you do need actually good attacking-minded midfielders when it comes to this. I wouldn't recommend someone like a Kante in a 4-4-2. Besides that, you guys know the deal. Fast, good centre-backs and wing-backs. They can be... I ideally like players that can attack in the wing-back position, but it depends how you are personally. And then the main thing with me is that the wingers overall, I don't think need to be all that great. They just need to really be fast and be able to attack the space. I was using someone like a Coman before. Last weekend we were using Lozano after we sold off Suarez. They don't need to be that crazy players. They only really need to have the ability to attack the space. So nothing really too crazy. But if you do want to have cards like Ousmane Dembele, Vinny Jr., even cards like Mane or Son, they'll perform really good in those positions and you'll have no issues with them. And then the other thing is, I think this year that's really important is get yourself a clinical striker. I've enjoyed cards like Benzema, like Suarez, like Cantona. Guys have got really high shooting. It seems to make a big difference, I think, personally. And that's not really a formation thing, that's just overall. Would highly recommend for you guys to go ahead and get yourself a good striker. So that's kind of the deal with the formation. Now let's move over to the instructions. And for the wing backs, what I personally like to do is put them on stay back while attacking. If I need them to overlap, I'll either manually trigger the runs using L1, or what I'll do is I'll manually move them myself. And I like pretty attacking wingbacks, so players like Akimi are perfect. I play with Theo Hernandez. I actually don't think he's as bad attacking wise as he was previously, but someone like Alphonso Davies, I was using him earlier in the year and he was incredible at that left back position. So yeah, that's probably what you want in your wingback situations. The centre backs I leave just on their default. Don't think you need to change all too much with him. I think for the centre mids, what you want to do 100% is cover centre. I don't know why cover wide is the default. I'm pretty sure it is the default, cover wing. But personally for me, cover center is the thing that makes the most amount of sense, because you don't want to be attacked through that middle, and if you need to move them wide, you can move them wide, but where the ball is dangerous is in the middle of the park, so you definitely want them to cover center. Personally for me, I run 2 players on stay back while attacking in my center mid spots, because I usually just manually move my players forward. That's something I tend to do a lot, so I want them to stay in position. But if you do want to play one of these players on a balanced attack or even get forward, I can completely understand that. That makes a lot of sense. But for me personally, stay back while attacking is what I like to do. And then on these wide players, I think the main important thing for these guys is get into the box with a cross. The reason for this being is that if you're in the situation where you're holding the ball up with someone like a Benzema and you've got your right wing, you want them to make that diagonal run, offload it to them, and then they can just hit the crossbody shot and get a very easy goal. If they don't do that, they end up staying very wide, and get into the box with the cross allows them to make those diagonal runs, so they are attacking the space in that final third. So that's the reason why I like that. I think the other thing that you could potentially do, if you're playing up against someone who is very narrow and you need to switch the balls, just to create that little bit of space between that wing back and that wide player, potentially maybe what you might want to do is put them on stay wide. But I would probably do that like situational. Like if you're in a game where you need your wide players to go wider, maybe stay wide is a situation you might want to do. But that's kind of what I do for the wide players. And then finally, for you guys, if you've been in the channel, you guys know what I like to do for my 2 strikers. I like one of them on getting behind and the other one on false 9. Usually the more technical player, like your cam sort of role, would be on the false 9 player. Normally I have Fakir and then Benzema's my getting behind. But all this makes it do is they stagger the striker. So you have options going in behind. You've also got someone who's holding and showing. And that's kind of the whole deal with the instructions, and that's my custom tactics overall. So that's kind of what I play. I kind of ran down most of the other formations as well on top of that, and hopefully you guys can understand that. Now what I would say is, obviously, these are the custom tactics that work for me. I'm not going to say that they work for everyone. You got to try them out and test them and see what works for you. But I have been asked a lot, what custom tactics are you running? And this is kind of like the video explaining it all. So hopefully I gave you guys a good example of what I've been using in FIFA 22 in order to get our wins. And yeah, hopefully that's been somewhat informational. But anyway, boys, that's going to do it for the video for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I will let you guys know that I have been a bit busy when it comes to IRL stuff. You guys have known if you've been in the stream, but just a lot of uni stuff going on right now, but we should have a few videos queued up. I've got some gameplay with the rule break with Suarez, as well as also some gameplay with the baby Cantona coming up on the channel. There's also should be a few more packs coming up, so make sure you stay tuned. If you are new around here, don't forget to subscribe. But anyway, boys, that's gonna do it for the video for today. Take care, have a good one, much love and peace.
Whenever your heart is broken, don't ever forget you're golden. I will find a light in your soul.